Hello and welcome back to Remnant 2. Today's build is going to be focused around the Neckbone Necklace used in conjunction with the Atonement Fold. Now the gameplay you're going to see is at Apocalypse, so you get to see how it performs there, which is very well. And then the overall build we're doing here is a status effect one. Even though the actual choice and items that I'm talking about here are very generic, you can do whatever you want, I just chose to do a status effect one. And I'll explain why as we go into it. So the Neckbone Necklace is an amulet that reduces the damage of status effects applied to you by 50%. Very nice. It's a significant amount of damage reduction, especially when you get hit by things like overload, some of the burning effects, like when you're dealing with like Cotton's Kiln kind of guys, those burning Duran guys. Some of those fire effects are very deadly, but this cuts it down by a lot. Now, whenever you have a status effect on you or a blight, you gain 25% more damage. And in the past, this was pretty finicky to get to work. It's very, it's niche. You had to have something happen to you in order for you to get the full benefit of it. And it was nice when it worked, but it's just in between not having things on you, it just didn't do anything. But now, with the Atonement Fold ring that you can get from the DLC, purchasing it from Laywise, it gives bleeding, it afflicts bleeding on you, and then gives you 10% increased crit chance. So while having this ring on, it is going to constantly give us the effect of the Neckbone Necklace. And that is the basis of the build here. It's just a flat 25% damage increase, and then we're going to use some of the other rings and stuff that gonna get activated thanks to the Atonement Fold. Now, like I said, I chose to do a status effect build with this setup because I have two main setups that I'm going to be using. The other one is a crit build. But this one, I chose for it because the Neckbone Necklace is just a flat damage increase across the board. It's not like a crit chance thing. It's not a range damage thing, melee damage. No, it's just damage. And so I wanted to use it to enhance some of my status effects, which some of the status effects have a low base value. So they're not getting a lot of extra damage, like 2 damage, which is not a lot. But for some of the other ones, if you end up using some burning effects, corrosive effects, those do more damage. So you're going to get a little bit more mileage out of that damage increase. But also, it's just increasing your damage in general. So you're just dealing more damage, which is nice. Now, some of the other rings that we're going to be using with the Atonement Fold, I've got the Alchemy Stone on so that while we have a status effect on us, we get an increased base lifesteal by 6%. So that's just going to help us out because the bleed reduces our healing by 50%. So we've got a lot of lifesteal effects going on, and another part of the reason why I went to the status effects is with so many lifesteal effects I'm leaning in there, we apply a lot of status effects to a lot of enemies, which means we're getting a lot of value out of lifesteal. So that's kind of why I did status effects, is just going with some more of that lifesteal stuff and the increased base damage. And because I'm doing status effects, I've got the Red Ring of Death so that when we apply one, it doubles up. I've just been getting better mileage out of it here lately rather than the Band of the Fanatic. I do like Band of the Fanatic, but it's just not, something is not jiving up right. It just doesn't seem to be doing what it should be doing, so meh. And then I've got the Blood Tinged Ring so that when we've got enemies with bleeding on them within range, we gain 2 health regeneration. So we've got the Merciless on, which is going to apply bleeding when we shoot it long enough. It's got Twisting Wounds, so we're applying even more bleeding. So we're going to get a lot of mileage out of that blood regeneration. Plus, it's going to be spreading thanks to us using the Ritualist as our primary archetype. I've got the Assassin's Dagger on, which applies bleeding as well. It's got the Stormbringer mutator in there so that it increases the stat effect damage of our melee weapons attacks. And then when we hit them with a charge melee attack at level 10, it is going to lower all the resistances. So this Assassin's Dagger actually does a ton of bleeding damage. Hopefully I'll be able to show you well here how much it does. Go away, kitty. Not right now. And then for my handgun, I've got the Nebula on. It's just a gun that has a baseline status effect. The Spitfire is another one. I kind of prefer the Spitfire, but the Nebula I think is just objectively better. The Nano Swarm is just really, really good. And then the double stack of the Corrosion is just really nice. So Nebula is just a fantastic choice. Now, I already mentioned it, we're running the Ritualist primarily because it can spread the status effects, which is what I really like right now. I've also got Miasma on, so we just do an AoE that applies a bunch of status effects. Alchemist is my secondary archetype, and I chose this one because it just gives us that flat damage increase, just like the Neckbone Necklace, so it's helping out our status effects. And then you just get some nice buffs and stuff from it. The Elixir of Life is just really nice, This is my armor. I've got the Zealot's hat on, Fey Royal body plate, Fey Royal greaves, and then the Zealot's wraps. This gets us at a 49 weight, so we've got a medium dodge and 45% damage reduction, which is okay. Not awful for Apocalypse, but not super amazing either. We're not going to be tanking hits. Relic-wise, I chose to go with a Constrained Heart because the bleeding is messing up our healing by 50%. So our relics just aren't going to be healing us very much in general. I chose this, though, because it gives us stacks of bulwark, so we get more damage reduction, so maybe it gives us a little bit more survivability to just, like, kind of make it out of a fight. You could probably argue for, like, the Crystal Heart, which is going to give you another, like, 25% damage reduction, but it slows you down. You know, depending on what you want to do, man. Like, honestly, actually, if the healing's getting reduced, maybe the Tormented Heart is better because it does do a lifesteal amount. Might be something worth trying, but I mean, I've swapped around and used a bunch of different things, so it's whatever you choose is probably going to work. Trait-wise, this is what I've got going on. You can look and just kind of see it. Standard survivability things. Big differences between some of my normal setups. I've got Amplitude in there because I want to enhance the spread range on the Ritualist Vial perk, so it's spreading to as many guys as possible. In addition, it helps out with the miasma. And then I also have Siphoner. I don't normally put points into Siphoner because I generally prefer regrowth, but this one is just going to work out better for us because we do so many damage over time effects and our healing is getting reduced. So it's just, in general, I found that Siphoner works pretty well for us. Let's go ahead and start moving. Now, one thing I would like to kind of talk about with the Atonement Fold, because kind of a downside with this build is that the healing gets really messed up and you are bleeding. So you have to make sure that you are actually, like, you have some way to heal up. And then you can see some of those bleeding effects going on. And you can see the bleed that we apply with the Twisting Wounds is not, like, amazing. But the strengths of this build right now is simply that it can spread to all kinds of guys that you don't see. And then you're pretty solid. There's a dude behind us now. We need to be careful. Get rid of some of these little guys. And get rid of him. Watch out for him. Now, if we can get... I want to get the Assassin's Dagger on him so we can see how much damage it's going to do. And look at that damage it does. Like 30 and 40 damage. That's pretty good. We need to be careful with him. Oh, that was a mistake. Okay, we're good. We're good. Look at how quickly we're regenerating from that lifesteal. There's all these status effects going on. It applies a lot of healing to us. Which is, again, why I chose status effects. Because we get so much lifesteal from the setup right now. We get a lot of mileage out of it. But before I got so rudely interrupted, because I should have just talked about this before doing gameplay. With the Atonement Fold, it gives you a bleeding effect on you. So that's going to slowly kill you over time. So you need to make sure you can, like, counter that. And there's a few ways you can do it. I'm using 2 different ways right now to do it. Kind of 3, actually. But I've got the Blood Tinged Ring on. We're bleeding, so that automatically activates this. So that pretty much counters it right now. Plus, the Neckbone Necklace, reducing status effect damage, reduces this damage as well. So we actually bleed for less because we have this amulet on. Which means this is really doing all the work we need. But if you don't want to have the Blood Tinged Ring on, you want to put something else on, you could drink the Root Water. Root Water will give you regeneration, and with the Neckbone Necklace, it's enough to counteract it, so you'll be okay. You could opt for the Tranquil Heart, gives you regeneration, just passive regeneration, that will counter the bleeding. Or, you know, you could put in points in Regrowth, you could put points in Triage to counter the minus 50% healing effect there. So, I mean, that's a downside of the Atonement Fold, is you got to make sure you can kind of counteract the bleeding, or you can, like, counteract the minus healing effect of it. So you got to work around it a little bit. I will say I did run around before without the Blood Tinged Ring, without the, Root Water on. And even though I was slowly bleeding out over time, the reduction from Neckbone Necklace was enough that I was pretty comfortable just healing up by hurting guys in between fights and stuff. So you could definitely run it like that. But here's a bunch of elite dudes. Let's go ahead and mess them up. We're going to start off with our miasma. Boom. Go ahead and do this. Make sure we're dodging. Wait for him to do his attack. And then we get him with a charge attack. Dodge again. Back in. Dodge again. Boom. We need to back up because our stamina is pretty low. And we'll go ahead and go to the mod. It does so much damage because we've got so many damage over time effects. Or not damage over time effects, but damage effects started going on. Now, when we use our relic, thanks to the... Oh, Lord. It didn't work for some reason. Oh, I missed my shot. The Ritualist should be removing negative status effects from us whenever we use a relic. And then it should spread them to enemies. I don't know why it didn't remove that burning. I'm assuming it's because it was different than standard burning. But there is an interesting interaction you can do with the Ritualist effect that removes negative status effects, the Atonement Fold because it constantly applies bleeding, and the Reaping Stone, which is right somewhere around here, right here. So when we remove a status effect from us, it makes us immune to all status effects and gives us more lifesteal for 10 seconds. That bleeding counts. So if we go ahead and we put that on, and then let's dodge around him. Let's go ahead and use our relic here. That should spread the bleeding, right? Oops. Unless he's going to get us. Use it now. There we go. So now he's bleeding. It's not a lot because the Atonement Fold doesn't do a lot of damage. But now we aren't bleeding and we've got increased, you know, lifesteal. And it makes us immune to other status effects. So if there's like other like fire and stuff going on, you use that and then you're completely immune to any other status effects the enemies are throwing at you. The downside is I'm pretty sure it removes our damage bonus from the Neckbone Necklace. So we're not actually going to be getting like that 25% damage bonus, but you are getting more lifesteal. So it's kind of a give and take thing. In a way, it's nice because it kind of nullifies the effects of minus 50% healing from the bleed. There's another elite. Let's go ahead and drop this here. Roll forward. Now let's get him with a dagger. Oh, we're gonna hit him with a dagger. We're gonna hit him with that dagger. Oh, please hit him with a dagger. For the love of God. All right, good thing we have on the Elixir of Life. Now there's some damage. Look at that damage. That's some nice damage over time effects. I really like it. Chop. And because we use a relic, look, we're immune to all the blight effects, so like we should be cursed. Nope, not anymore. This swap to this. We've got more status effects on him. And then he just, you know, melts down. It's really nice. I mean, and like I said at the beginning, this is basically a status effect build. But one of the nice things, one of my favorite things about Remnant is that, you know, you have some broad ideas, broad themes for builds, you know, status effect build, critical hit build, a melee build, etc., right? And there's all kinds of different flavors you can do. Like, you can make those builds happen in all kinds of different ways. It just depends on the flavor you want to do. So this is a status effect build, just like, you know, I've had like 2 or 3 other status effect builds on my channel, but they all do it in different ways because that's just something that Remnant does. It allows you to make these different types of builds in different ways. So even though, yeah, this is another status effect build, its application is different from the other ways. So maybe if you don't like how one performs, you just need to try something else, and maybe you'll find that that flavor just jives with you a little bit better. And then you get to have a lot of fun, man. I mean, and this is fun. I've got it focused on bleeding. You could switch to the Spitfire shotgun and get a, please shoot. Thank you. You could switch to the Spitfire shotgun, which is a fire shotgun with, you know, baseline fire application. And you could use that. You know, you could just completely forego the ritualist part of this. And, you know, maybe you are really interested in the Neckbone Necklace. And you could totally just turn it into some other kind of build because the Atonement Fold and Neckbone Necklace are just a generic combo. Nothing about it says only use me with status effects. It's just damage and reduced status effect damage to you. That's all. That's it. And then we can just ignore him and let him go down. So nice. Chop. Out. Let's drop this. Ooh. Now, I definitely think getting that bleeding effect on them to spread, because look how much more damage that bleed effect does than, like, the one from the twisting wounds. It's just so much better. We're going to move right here, and then we're going to hit him through the wall, just like that, and then let our health just kind of start chunking back up. Owie. Boom. Oh, dodge that. Get rid of him. Get rid of him, please. There we go. The little nanites, dude, they do a lot of work too. Can you hit him? Yeah, like, look how much they shred that dude. And then they just go off and they keep getting more dudes. And they just absolutely wreck house. That's so... The overall setup of this is just very... It's very solid. The weakest part is simply that you don't have very good traditional healing. So you got to work around that. That's the biggest weakness out of it. But even that is not... It's not that bad. Oh, I need to roll out of that. What's you? Boom. And then down they go. Oh, you're gone. We're going to wait for them right here. And we're going to use the Nebula to kind of finish them off, maybe. There we go. Yeah, look at that. 62 damage. So that's what I was talking about with, like, the corrosion doing more damage than the bleed. So, like, you get a lot more mileage out of that flat damage increase. Because a 25% increase on, like, 10 damage... Not very much, you know, but 25% more on like 40 damage, that's a bit more. Now, if we're going in, you're like, I don't have the Red Ring of Death, maybe. Maybe you don't have, like, some of the other pieces that I'm using. Like, you can, you know, the basic idea is very generic. You can make it work with a number of things. Like, I was not always using the, oh, shit. I was not using the Red Ring of Death for a while, so maybe you could just go with, you know, some generic damage increases, like the Stone of Balance, Ring of, Burden of the Destroyer, and just go off, like, just a flat damage increase to your status effects. You could do things like that to make it work, you know? You could try and go with, like, some other, like, mod abilities to apply different status effects, whether it's a hot shot, corrosive rounds, overloaded rounds, things like that, you know. There's a lot of flexibility in what you could try and make work depending on what you have going on. This is just what I have happening, and you can do whatever you want. Just apply status effects, use the, you know, use the Neckbone Necklace, Atonement Fold, and then just apply some status effects. I think the Ritualist works best, but like I said earlier, I mean, it's just a status effect build applied in a different way. Like, you can make it work in all kinds of different ways. We're going to test something real quick because I'm just kind of curious, right? I don't think it's going to work super well, but like I said, the Neckbone Necklace reduces the status effects by quite a bit. So I'm going to drop down a Firestorm. We're going to see if it really reduces that damage by a lot or not. Boom. Ooh, not the baseline damage. That's what I was kind of worried about. Now, the burning effects, I bet the burning effects, it would reduce it by quite a bit. Because if you do... Oh my god, it's still there. What? Interesting. Okay. But, like, if you put the Spitfire on, and then you drop it... Hold on. And you drop it on the floor, you can create a puddle of fire. You walk into it, and you start taking some burning damage, but... It's not very much. I mean, maybe it's just not very much damage in general, you know? Maybe because we're using the Ritualist. It's right, it's not doing a lot of damage to us. That's pretty much it, though. That's the build. It does work on bosses, too. You know, I used it to defeat the Sunken Witch whenever I was testing it. You know, it worked fine. It actually worked really nicely there because you could apply a bunch of status effects to her and then just run around and let it just kind of burn her down. The Ritualist allows it to spread to all the pigs she summons. So that's, you know, it's a very nice aspects of the overall setup. But hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, got to see some fun little combos. You know, kind of showed you that you can do, like, different builds or do the same builds in different ways so that you can get some different flavor out of them. And, you know, maybe if you've used the Atonement Fold and the Neckbone Necklace for your own type of build, like, how did you use it? Like, what did you do for your setup? Like, I'm always curious to see it in the comments. And I'm sure other people would like to see it too, because it's more ideas for people to learn from. It's always just kind of nice. So, until the next one, take care, everybody.